Step through the grand doors of a royal palace, where sparkling chandeliers glitter overhead, priceless tapestries line the walls, and the air carries a scent that you probably wouldn't want to breathe in too deeply. Behind the dazzling crowns, the elaborate gowns, and the gleaming golden thrones, the queens of centuries past often held secrets that no amount of perfume could ever fully conceal. Before the conveniences of modern plumbing, daily showers and deodorant, cleanliness was not only rare but a luxury that many chose to avoid, and some queens became truly legendary for it. Today, we're venturing deep into history to uncover the astonishingly unhygienic habits of 4 royal women whose personal scent was said to clear a room faster than a royal decree. We're talking about queens who genuinely believed that washing could harm them, who went years without ever changing their underclothes, and who depended on thick layers of perfume, flowers, and carefully powdered wigs to disguise what lay hidden beneath. So, settle in, prepare yourself, and take a deep breath. You're going to need it, as we travel back to an era when royalty sparkled with outward splendor but, behind the scenes, didn't always smell quite as regal. Isabella of Castile was a towering figure of European history, the woman who helped unify Spain and sponsored voyages that would change the world, but beneath her crown was a vow that shocked even her own attendants. During the final stage of the centuries-long Reconquista, the campaign to drive Muslim rulers from the Iberian Peninsula, Isabella made a sacred promise. She would not change her linen undergarments until Granada, the last Muslim stronghold, had fallen. Sounds extreme? It was. This wasn't a matter of days or even months. This vow reportedly lasted for nearly a decade. Attendants whispered that she didn't bathe either, except for 2 times in her entire life, once as a newborn and once before her wedding. Servants were said to draw lots to avoid working near her, and even the royal physicians begged for her to abandon her vow, fearing disease could sweep through the court. When Granada finally surrendered in 1492, the garments she had worn were said to be so saturated with sweat, grime, and time that they had become stiff and discolored. Some accounts claim they were burned immediately, as if they posed a health hazard, while others say they were briefly displayed as a relic of devotion before someone realized the smell was too much. Whether all the tales are true or heavily exaggerated, Isabella's determination to equate suffering with holiness left a lingering mark, not just in history, but in the very air of her royal court. Next, we travel to 18th century France, where Marie Antoinette dazzled the world with opulent gowns and towering hairstyles that seemed to defy gravity. But behind the lavish fashion and glittering diamonds lay a truth far less glamorous. Marie Antoinette did bathe, but rarely, and when she did, it was anything but private. Bathing was a full-scale event held in a room filled with attendants, servants, and sometimes members of the nobility, all watching the queen as she stepped into a copper tub lined with linen. The water, scented with herbs or orange blossoms, made the bath look elegant, but these occasions were infrequent, happening once every few weeks at best. On most days, the queen relied on cloths soaked in alcohol or vinegar to wipe down her body. Her iconic hairstyles were built using animal fat and powder to hold their towering shapes, sometimes even decorated with miniature ships or elaborate scenes. Washing her hair wasn't an option, it stayed styled for weeks. That meant lice could become an issue, and tales circulated that pests sometimes crept into the hair of women at Versailles as they slept. Menstrual hygiene wasn't much better. Marie Antoinette used cloth rags that were washed and reused, though likely not thoroughly. With no running water and layers of tightly fitted silk gowns, irritation and infections were common. The Palace of Versailles itself smelled dreadful. Overflowing chamber pots, limited toilets, and unwashed clothing all contributed to a stench so overpowering that perfume became a necessity, not just a luxury. Marie Antoinette's life may have glittered with wealth, but the reality of hygiene in her era was anything but sparkling. Elizabeth I of England is remembered as the brilliant monarch who led England into a golden age, but her approach to cleanliness would shock us today. In the 16th century, water was considered dangerous. Doctors believed that bathing opened the pores and allowed deadly illnesses to seep in. As a result, most people, including Elizabeth, avoided washing their bodies. Instead, cleanliness was equated with clean linen. Elizabeth was meticulous about changing her underclothes and gowns frequently, sometimes even daily, which made her seem unusually clean for her time. But changing clothes wasn't the same as washing. Full baths happened rarely, perhaps once a month or even less. When she did bathe, it was a grand production. A copper tub was brought into the palace, Hot water was poured in, and the queen would sit while her attendants gently wiped her with cloth soaked in rose water or vinegar. No scrubbing, no soap, and certainly no privacy. Menstrual care was rudimentary as well. Elizabeth used thick cloth pads called clouts, which were washed and reused, often while still stained. Tight corsets and heavy layers of clothing made the experience even more uncomfortable. Her ladies-in-waiting were acutely aware of her cycles, but the subject was never openly discussed. Despite her glorious image, Elizabeth I lived with the same challenges as everyone else of her era: limited hygiene and a constant battle to mask unpleasant realities with perfume and elaborate fashion. Our final queen, Catherine de' Medici of France, was far more than just a royal consort. She was a master strategist, a shrewd diplomat, and one of the most influential women of the 16th century. But beyond her political genius, Catherine carried with her a peculiar reputation. She ruled not just with power, but with perfume. Catherine was deeply fearful of bathing. Like many of her contemporaries, she believed that immersing oneself in water could open the pores and allow deadly illnesses to seep into the body. This fear was so strong that she avoided baths almost entirely. Instead, she developed a solution that would define both her personal image and the entire French court's culture. She turned to fragrance, not as luxury, but as a daily shield. Rather than cleanse her skin, Catherine would lavish herself with an extraordinary array of perfumes. She was known to drench her body in rose water, musk, ambergris, and other exotic and powerful scents imported from far corners of the world. These fragrances weren't applied lightly. Catherine wore them in layers so strong they could be smelled before she even entered a room. Her approach to scent became almost ceremonial, and it wasn't long before she transformed the art of perfumery into an essential part of courtly life. One of her most famous innovations was the creation of perfumed gloves. At a time when everyone carried the weight of unwashed clothes and the odors of poor hygiene, Catherine's perfumed gloves became a sensation across Europe. Crafted from fine leather and soaked in specially blended oils, these gloves not only made hands smell divine but also left a cloud of fragrance lingering around the wearer. It was Catherine's way of surviving in an environment where unpleasant odors were everywhere, from the nobles' sweat-soaked garments to their rotting teeth and untreated gum infections. Catherine's use of fragrance was not purely for her own comfort, it also set the standard for the royal court. Her cloud of perfume became a form of aromatic armor, shielding her from the foul air of palaces that were rarely cleaned and often overcrowded. Chamber pots frequently overflowed, linens were rarely washed, and fresh air was in short supply. In such conditions, perfume became more than a fashionable accessory. It was a practical necessity. Her influence on European fashion and culture was immense. Catherine de' Medici made perfume synonymous with elegance, refinement, and even survival. Those who wished to fit into the sophisticated world of the French court had little choice but to follow her example. Perfume houses flourished, and the art of blending oils, herbs, and flowers into complex fragrances became a thriving industry. By the time Catherine had cemented her power in France, she had also cemented perfume's place in European society. No longer seen as a mere indulgence, fragrance became essential for anyone hoping to withstand the realities of life in close royal quarters, and all of this stemmed from one queen's deep fear of bathing. Catherine de' Medici's legacy wasn't just in politics or diplomacy. She left behind a perfume empire, a culture of scent that would shape European fashion for centuries. Her life was a testament to how even the smallest personal habit, in this case avoiding water, could ripple outward and change the world around her. Can you imagine living in a world where washing yourself was believed to be dangerous, where perfume stood in for soap, and where the royal garments you saw changing daily were far cleaner than the body beneath them? These queens ruled vast nations, commanded armies, and shaped the course of history. Yet behind the dazzling jewels and polished appearances, they endured the very same unhygienic realities as everyone else in their time. Palaces may have sparkled with gold, but the air often carried the heavy scent of unwashed bodies, overflowing chamber pots, and the constant attempt to mask it all with layers of strong fragrance. Life was luxurious in appearance, but harsh in reality, even for those at the very top. History often paints us a picture of elegance and refinement, but the truth is far more complicated, and, at times, a little shocking. So, ask yourself, could you have endured even a single day in such a world, without the comforts of running water, soap, and modern hygiene?